The world is in tremendous danger. We're in danger of possibly a World War III.
As conflicts rage in Ukraine and Gaza, many are wondering if we're teetering on the edge of another world war.
Earlier, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said if Russia won the conflict, it would invade NATO nation Poland next, triggering the Third World War.
The speculation is running wild, with some even declaring that we've already stumbled into the disaster we all feared, World War III.
Everybody has to be very worried, right? Because if you weren't worried, that's when disaster is going to strike.
But there's a question keeping everyone on their toes. How would the United States respond during a nuclear conflict? We know what China has been doing.
China has been positioning itself as a global superpower in recent history, with hopes of exerting that dominance.
But is the US prepared? How many nuclear weapons are readily available to the president? How many casualties could we expect? And most importantly, could the US win a global nuclear war?
Vladimir Putin is becoming embarrassed and pushed into a corner.
Тоже есть оружие, да знают об этом. Сейчас только я сказал. Тоже есть оружие, которое может поражать цели на их территории.
There are no checks on Mr. Putin. Just as he made the irresponsible decision to invade Ukraine, he could make another decision.
And I wonder, Mr. President, what you would say to him if he is considering using chemical or tactical nuclear weapons.
Don't.
The world is on the verge of another global conflict, recalling the terrible days of World War II. After World War I, the notion that such a catastrophic event could occur again seemed inconceivable, as it was called the War to End All Wars in 1918.
I got gassed, and my brother got killed the same day on the Somme. Well, I think I went grey-haired overnight, worrying would I be permanently blind.
The hope was that humanity had evolved beyond the need for such widespread and devastating conflicts. However, the outbreak of World War II shattered that hope. And now, with the threat of a third global conflict casting its shadow, the world is once again gripped by fear and uncertainty.
Is it just me, or are things feeling tenuous?
But this new global disaster is not news to some. You see, the Cold War, which began in 1947, brought with it the spread of nuclear weapons and technology to the Soviet Union, escalating the possibility of another world war. So the military and civil personnel in various countries like the US have been actively anticipating and planning for such a catastrophic event. But what has led to this heightened anticipation for another global disaster? Well, there's been a bunch of military conflicts since the 21st century started. Like the Syrian civil war since 2011, the Russian invasion of Ukraine since 2022, the ongoing conflict between Israel and Palestine, and the serious growing tensions between the US and China. People are seeing these events as possible triggers for a global disaster. And speaking of the US, the big question on everyone's mind is whether they're ready to take on another global conflict. Sure, they've got a track record of winning wars, but let's face it, a third world war is a whole different ballgame. For decades, the United States has been flexing its military muscles with a compilation of platforms and weapons that make up the three legs of the US nuclear triad. This triad serves as the backbone of America's national security, providing 24/7 deterrence to prevent catastrophic actions from adversaries and standing ready to deliver a decisive response. Anywhere, anytime. Let's take a closer look at these formidable weapons. The US nuclear triad consists of nuclear-capable bombers, ballistic missile submarines, and intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs. These three systems have been instrumental in preventing nuclear war and keeping America and its allies safe, largely due to their regular testing and updates. Let's start with the intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM. These land-based, nuclear-armed missiles have been a key component of the American nuclear defense strategy since their deployment in 1959. The intercontinental ballistic missile is no ordinary missile, it's a strategic defensive weapon designed to deliver nuclear warheads with deadly precision. Capable of traveling at speeds of around 15,000 miles per hour, these behemoths soar high above the Earth's atmosphere before hurtling back down to their intended targets. With a range of nearly 10,000 miles, these missiles can reach places other missiles can only dream of. The intercontinental ballistic missile has a 3-stage flight process, and this is what the process looks like. First, there's the boost phase, where the rocket engine propels the missile through the atmosphere in a matter of minutes. Then comes the mid-course phase, lasting around 20 minutes, during which the rocket engine shuts off and the missile continues its ascent before descending back to Earth. Finally, there's the terminal phase, which lasts less than a minute and sees the detached warheads re-entering the atmosphere. With such powerful and precise capabilities, it's clear that intercontinental ballistic missiles are not to be taken lightly. If you've ever wondered what the US intercontinental ballistic missile looks like, check this out. This particular one you're gazing at is called the Minuteman. The Minuteman holds the prestigious title of being the first solid-fueled ICBM ever deployed. Its solid fuel technology brought about a revolution in missile development. Not only could it be remotely controlled, but it also offered precision accuracy, could be launched in a matter of moments, and was cost-effective. The missile first became operational in 1962, and over 50 years later, 400 modern Minuteman ICBMs are still on alert today. Now, what are the advantages of these ICBMs, and would they really give the US an upper hand in an upcoming nuclear war? The Minuteman brings a lot to the table for the US in case a nuclear war comes knocking. With its incredible speed and range, it provides prompt long-range strikes from controlled environments and is nearly impossible to intercept. Also, because they are hard to destroy when positioned in subterranean silos, enemy targets find it more difficult to build countermeasures against them because they are aware that it takes at least 2 nuclear strikes to destroy a single silo-based missile. So it's a tough nut to crack. But why keep missiles anchored to land when the sea provides the ultimate advantage? The US also has the sea all covered up, just in case the unthinkable happens with mind-blowing missiles like this. They are called the ballistic missile submarines, also known as the SSBN. These submarines are equipped to handle business beneath the waves and are ready to unleash their own brand of underwater fury if the need arises. These missiles are like Plan B. Even if every US intercontinental ballistic missile silo, stock nuclear weapon, and nuclear-capable bomber were destroyed, US nuclear submarines could and would counterattack. They are always lurking beneath the waves, undetectable and ready to strike at unexpected moments. They provide a continuous presence and an assured second strike capability that can rain destruction on any target on Earth should the unthinkable occur. Since the mid-1950s, these ballistic missile submarines have been crucial to the United States nuclear arsenal. Today, they carry a larger quantity of nuclear warheads compared to the Intercontinental Ballistic Missile Force. These submarines, also known as boomers, are capable of launching strategic nuclear weapons upon short notice. Their mobility, stealth, and endurance make them practically undetectable, and therefore a powerful strategic asset even in the event of an unexpected war. It's like having a secret weapon up your sleeve, ready to unleash havoc when needed. Take the Ohio class, for example. These submarines, also known as Trident submarines, are the US Navy's most potent and expensive fleet ballistic missile submarines. They are the biggest ballistic missile submarines ever constructed by the US, and they mean business. They are also the busiest, staying docked only long enough to switch crews and resupply. They undertake the longest patrols compared to other submarines, and as a result, they possess the most comprehensive crew facilities among Navy submarines. It's like a floating fortress beneath the waves. They're only slightly outdone by the Soviet Typhoon class at 562 feet, but size isn't everything, right? Each Ohio-class submarine carries 20 Trident II ready-to-launch ballistic missiles. They are the most destructive weapon in America's nuclear arsenal. Each missile is armed with either 4 or 5 475 kiloton W-88 warheads. That's enough to make anyone think twice, and in theory, each sub can launch its entire 20-missile payload virtually undetected in under 7 minutes. An arsenal like that commands some serious respect. When launched, the Trident II travels at speeds of over 18,000 miles per hour, has an operational range of over 7,500 miles, and typically reaches its target in around 15 minutes. Also, each warhead is guided by a multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicle known as MyRV, allowing a single Trident II missile to deliver up to 5 warheads to 5 separate targets. And just to put things into perspective, one Trident II missile armed with 5 warheads has 154 times the destructive power of the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. These submarines are so powerful that the US has around 70% of all its warheads on submarines. But why? Well, there are numerous advantages of the ballistic missile submarine. First, they make up the most survivable leg of the nuclear triad. These submarines are virtually undetectable at sea. Their stealth design makes finding one an almost impossible task. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack, but way more high stakes. And with at least 10 submarines on constant patrol at all times, ballistic missile submarines assure that the US can strike at any time, anywhere, even after a surprise attack. So with around 70% of all its warheads on submarines, the odds are definitely in their favor. Now that the land and sea are secure, the question remains, what about the sky? Throughout history, the United States Air Force has been home to some of the most legendary aircraft, especially strategic bombing aircraft. From the early planes to the iconic B-17 Flying Fortress and B-25 Mitchell of World War II, each strategic bomber has etched its name in the history books. But in today's world of long-range ballistic missiles, versatile fighter aircraft, and unmanned aerial vehicles, the role of the strategic bomber has been called into question. However, the Air Force still operates over 120 bomber aircrafts, each with its own fascinating array of purposes. Check out the Boeing B-52 Stratofortress, capable of performing a wide range of missions. This aircraft has proven its versatility time and time again. Then there's the Northrop Grumman B-2 Spirit, widely known as the bomber of the future. While it may not be capable of supersonic flight, its stealth technology makes it virtually undetectable to enemy anti-aircraft defenses. So, if World War III were to break out, how many missiles could the US launch, and would these weapons stand a chance? As of 2024, the United States is reported to have an impressive nuclear inventory of around 5,550 total nuclear weapons. Now, that's quite a hefty arsenal. This includes 1,389 active warheads, 2,361 inactive but available ones, and 1,800 patiently waiting in line to be dismantled. But under the 2010 New Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, the United States is allowed 1,550 nuclear warheads on 800 strategic launchers, with only 700 of those warheads eligible for deployment. But the exact number of nuclear weapons in each country's possession is a closely guarded secret, so there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding these estimates. Most nuclear-armed states provide little to no information about the sizes of their nuclear stockpiles. However, what we do know is that when you combine the US and Russia's nuclear weapons, they make up 88% of the world's total inventory, which is more than 12,000 as of 2024. That's a staggering amount of destructive power in the hands of just 2 countries. Now let's get real for a moment. Despite all this talk of potential conflict, the international community is actually working towards nuclear non-proliferation and disarmament. Why? Well, because let's face it, World War III would be an absolute disaster. We're talking devastating destruction, loss of life, and environmental consequences. So really, it's in everyone's best interest to avoid going down that road. But in case it happens, how bad could it get? How many casualties could we expect if American bombs start flying? These are the questions that keep us up at night. Let's paint a picture of what the world might look like going forward. The aftermath of World War III would be catastrophic. We're talking about the loss of millions of lives, both military and civilian. The global economy would completely collapse, leading to widespread poverty and unemployment. Environmental degradation and destruction could run rampant, resulting in the loss of biodiversity and the collapse of ecosystems. And let's not forget about the potential for political instability and the emergence of authoritarian regimes. Oh, and did we mention the regression in technological advancements leading to a loss of progress and innovation? Yeah, that too. We've seen it before during World War II, when the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki by the United States caused unprecedented destruction and loss of life, leading to long-term health effects due to radiation exposure. It's not a pretty picture. And as this speculation of World War III continues to erupt, some rumors about which areas would get hit the hardest if the war were to happen has been moving around. Some say large cities like Los Angeles and New York City will receive the heat. But that might not be absolutely true according to some sources. They claim that the US has strategically placed its nuclear forces away from areas with high populations. Intercontinental ballistic missile silos, military bases, and nuclear storage are spread out across the country, reducing the likelihood of large cities being primary targets. Now, the question on everyone's mind is, could the United States actually win a global nuclear war if it were to happen? Well, let's take a peek behind the classified curtains and see what the US has up its sleeve. The Major Attack Option 1, or MAO-1 for short, this is part of the United States historical nuclear war planning under the Single Integrated Operational Plan, which was a literal playbook for nuclear war from 1961 to 2003. Like a sports team would have a playbook for their opponents, it was full of options including major attack options, which were essentially pre-planned strategies for a nuclear attack. Now, the details of these plans are not out in the public. We're talking about highly classified plans here, while we do know that the major attack options involved a good old-fashioned large-scale attack on an adversary's military and strategic capabilities. The specifics of MAO-1 and whether it included over 1,000 warheads targeting certain categories remain a mystery. But what many are unaware of is that the Single Integrated Operational Plan has since been replaced by more current operational plans, and the specifics of the United States nuclear strategy have evolved over time. There's a new operational plan called Operation 801012, also known as Strategic Deterrence and Force Employment. However, just like its predecessor, this plan is also classified and the public details about its contents are scarce. Well, no one would want their plans to get to the hands of their enemies. So it is evident that when it comes to handling the unimaginable, the US has got some tricks up its sleeve. With hidden plans in place and a history of coming out on top in global conflicts, there's no denying that the US has what it takes to handle whatever may come its way. But the reality is that in nuclear war, there are no winners. The only certainty is widespread devastation and unimaginable loss.